So hey guys, we are live finally. So welcome to the second session of the Flutter Festival event. Uh, Today we are going to cover up the second part of the UI UX session, which was left off in the first session. Okay, so today again your our facilitator Dhritiman Roy, who is an excellent Flutter developer as well as a Flutter facilitator of this event, as well as a member of the GDSC core team. Okay, so he's going to teach you about all the basics of Flutter and he's going to introduce and continue making the news app which you were making since the past in the past session. So without further ado, let's welcome Dhritiman to the channel. So hi Dhritiman, what's up?
Hello Faz, thank you for the introduction.
Yeah, so the stage is yours. So let's continue. Best of luck.
Cool. Thank you. Okay. Hello everyone. Good evening everyone, and hello. Welcome to the stream. Okay. So this session will not be a long session. This session will be short session. We will be making the UI part. That is the second part. We already made the first stream, but some people were not present in the first stream. So we will just revise and go through the stuff that were done in the first session. So without any further ado, I am sharing my screen. Okay, is my screen visible? Okay, let's start. First of all, in the last session, we discussed a little bit about Dart, and these were some of the basic stuffs about Dart. As I told that you do not need to learn Dart separately for learning Flutter. You can just go through Flutter docs and you will be comfortable with Dart. But still I introduced some parts of Dart. So here today also I will introduce just at speed I will introduce you to the basic stuff of Dart. So Dart also has the basic data types that are used in other languages as well, such as C, C++, Java, anything you can say. So we have the int data type, we have double data type, we have string, bool. We can also add numbers to string with the toString method. Okay, now we also learned a new type of data type that is called the num data type. Here we will see something interesting happen. The runtime type actually tells us the actual runtime type of that variable we are using. So here we get int, but if we change this to a decimal point number, let's see what happens. We get a double. So it has interesting use cases. Another data structure we studied last session was a list, same as array list in Java and vector in C++. And we can add to the list using the add function. If we print the list, we'll see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, cool. And last data structure that we need for our app to function is a map. Same as hash map in any other language. So this is the key and this is the value. We can also specifically tell Dart that what is the key data type and what is the value data type. Mainly we'll be using string and dynamic. So strings tells that the key will always be a string, and dynamic tells that the value can be anything. such as a string, int, null value, anything. Just a second. Okay. Now, we also learned in the last session what are how to declare functions in Dart. So this returns the sum of a and b, but in this case we can see that there is just a single line, so we can do like arrow function in JavaScript, a plus b, or just return a plus b. Now, last thing we need is a class. Let's say this has two fields in the class, and we can create a constructor here. And with this we can tell that these are named constructors. Now, what are named constructors? In the last session I told, if you make a new person, then we can specifically tell that which value is the name value and which is the age. Also, when you are using name, either we have to make the variable null data type, like null save variable, or we need to use the required parameter, required keyword. Okay, so these were the basics of Dart. Just I quickly run through. Now let's move on to the code. This was the finished app for last session. Up till this we did. If we quickly go through, we used a scaffold. A scaffold is just like the main screen of an app. We used an app bar, which is this part of the screen. We used a padding widget in the body. Padding gives the this small white space we can see here in the left and right side of the screen. We use a column that tells Flutter to whatever children the column has, to align them vertically. We had a text field, which is this search bar here. We customized this text field using this decoration named parameter, where we use the input decoration, and we customize it according to our needs, where we inserted a leading icon, and we inserted some custom borders. A sized box widget is nothing but a simple white space. If we can see that between, above the top news text and the search bar, there is a small white space, that is this sized box. We use the text as the name suggests. It's a text widget to show text on the screen. And we use an expanded. Expanded tells that whatever screen there is left apart from the above widgets, please do take those. And we use a list value. List value is something similar to a column, but we can scroll using the list value. Okay. Now, in today's session, we'll be making the other screen, that is where we will actually view the news. So let's make that screen. We will name it as news view page. Here also we have to import the material.package, and in this case also we will make a stateless widget. Now, stateless widget means that from within this stateless widget we cannot change or update the state, and for this page we also do not need to update it. For seeing the changes, we also need to go to the main page and change this to news view page. Okay. we can see a blank screen because there is just a simple container in the news view page. Let's change it to a scaffold. Here also we will give an app bar. The app bar will have a title, let's say, or in the title we will specifically tell the Flutter app that it has to be a text. In the title we can use anything. For now, let's just stick with a text widget. Okay, so we can see that here is the title, but this is not the color we are desired for. So we will change the background color of app bar. And we'll also do not want this shadow under the app bar. So we will give the elevation to be 0. Okay. Now we also need the scaffold background color and the app bar background color to be same. So for scaffold also we specify the background color to be palette.background. Let's give it a body. In the body also this will be a column widget. And someone in the chat, please tell how to stop this music. Okay, we have to see about that. In the column, we will be using some container, let's say, with a height of 300 and color of light gray. So we can see our container here. Here we will actually store the image. Now, before storing that image, we also need to specify the title of the news. For that, we'll be using another widget called text widget. Here, let's say first we hard code the value, then we will use parameters. And we will style this text. We'll give a font size of 18, and we'll give a font weight, that is boldness. Okay, so we can see the title here, but let's first make the structure. Then we will style those things again. Now beneath this image, we need when the news was published. So this one will be also light gray with a font size of, let's say, 14 and no boldness. And we'll copy the text because we also want to know who was the author of the news. Okay. Lastly, we will give the actual content of the news. That will also be a text widget. with a different style. Let's give it deep blue with a font size of 14. Okay, so our basic structure is ready. Now let's configure it according to our needs. First need is, we do not actually need the title, that is a news view page. We just need a button to go back to the previous page from where we came from, that is the home page. So we will delete the title and we'll use a leading named parameter that will store a icon button. As the name suggests, this icon button stores an icon inside it and it transforms that icon into a button. We'll give it an icon and we'll give it an icon of arrow back iOS. This looks cool. With the color of deep blue and size, let's say 20. The icon button also needs a named parameter called onPressed. This onPressed takes a function inside it so that whenever we press the icon, what actually will happen, we will write here. So for now, let's keep it empty and let's give it a to-do. Now for the column part, we see all the things are in the middle, but we do not want this in the middle. We want to be just here at the start of the screen. So we will give a cross-axis alignment. What options we have? Let's see. We have a center, end, start, stretch values. If we give each value and try, center is the default, so it remains the same. Start will shift all the things to the left start, that is the starting position of the x-axis or the cross-axis, and end will shift all the things to the right, extreme right. We want the start, so let's stick with start. Now we can see that in the left side and right side there is no spacing. So if we hold the phone, there might be accidental clicks, that is unnecessary accidental clicks. So we need to give some padding in left and right. So we'll wrap the column. So just go to column, right click, refactor, and we'll give it a widget of padding. Padding tells that it needs a padding named parameter, and it takes edge insets, and we will give it a symmetrical padding, that is horizontal and vertical. For vertical we will give it 0, and by default also it is 0. So horizontal will be 16 and vertical will be 0. So we can see that there is spacing in left and right. Since vertical is 0, we do not need to specifically specify it. Now we can see that the title and the image container doesn't have any space in the between. We'll have to give some white space in between the title and the image container. So we need a size box of, let's say, 16. Okay, we'll copy this size box and give it after every widget we are using. Okay, so this is looking decent, but one thing we need is the image, but we are not passing it any image, right? So we need to pass like the image, the title, the who published, when it was published, the author, and content. So we can pass it individually, like string image URL or title, and rest. But wouldn't it be nice if we made a single class for it and just passed the class where all the parameters such as title, image URL, the date when it was published, the author, and the content was present? Let's first do it. So here in we will go above the news page widget. We'll declare a custom class called news info model. And here we will specify some fields such as image URL, title. Now this date time is a class that stores the date and time. If we just click here, control and click, we can see that how it is set up. If we go to one of its main constructors, we can see that here we can specify date, time, day, hour, minute, seconds, milliseconds, and so on. We also need the actual content that will be in string format. And last thing we need is the author name. Now, we will declare a constructor for this. All these values will come from our API, right? Now, some values here can be null because we do not know. For every image, for every news published, there might not be an image URL, or there might not be an author name too. But some things are fixed, such as date time is fixed, title will be fixed, content might not be fixed. We do not know that yet. So for image URL, we will say that it can be a string or it also can be a null value. Title will always, news article will always have title. So we'll specifically tell that it will always be a string. Date time, when it is published, it will be, if we are fetching the news, it has to be published sometime or not. So this one will also be a date time, not a null time. The content might be null, like there's some news that is a one-liner news. The author name also can be null. Now, so when these are some null types, that is, it can be a string or it can be a null value, but title and date time has to be present. So we will give it a required keyword before this, which means whenever we are calling this news info model, it has to contain some title and date time. Now, in the next session, we will talk about how we are fetching all these stuff from an API. But for this session, we will just make a dummy news info model. Let's make it. Let's give it a title of and a date time of now. This function, this static function of a date time class, gives the exact time and date of when it is called. Now, let's also give these values, which can be null or which can be string. Image URL, we had an image URL present here. Let's give that only, since we are using dummy model for this session. Content, let's copy some some text. This much I believe is fine. So here is an interesting way to declare a multi-liner text. We use triple quotation and we give the entire string inside it. So it will specifically tell Flutter that after this line ends, there has to be a line break or there has to be a new line. So whichever way you want to specifically tell Flutter to show the text in the screen, it will show it like that only. Now let's give the dummy text here, dummy content. And author name. Whose name should I get? Our protagonist's name is cool enough. Now, here we will pass, since we already made a dummy news info model. So in this news view page, we just need to pass this news info model. So we do not need to specifically tell to pass like image URL or a title or content. We just need to pass this one since we made a model for that. And we'll call it inside the constructor of the news view page with a required keyword, since this is always required. Now, this is the title. We will just call news info model, thing that we were passing here, and dot title. Now, since we are using an outside value, this is not a constant, so we need to remove the constant keyword. And we can give the constant in the text style, since all the values inside here are constants. Now, here we will give the date time. Let's see how we will give it. For now, let's just give the news info model date time dot toString. Here we will specify the author name. Now, about the thing that I was telling in the first session, that Dart offers null safety. Here we specifically told in the news info model that author can be a null or can be a string. So here we are getting an error. The text widget needs to have a string value to work. But we already told that author to either string hoga या फिर null hoga. So how can we specifically tell text that author is not null? We used another thing called the double question marks. We tell Flutter that अगर author name null नहीं है, then use the author name or just print or show no author. So this is a cool feature in Dart where we, at the time of coding only, you can catch null errors and specifically show the output that you want when the value is actually null. In case of content too, the content can be null. So we tell Dart कि अगर content null है, then show. No content present. Okay. Now we will pass the dummy news info model that we made. We will just rerun the app once. So all the values that is specified in the dummy news info model are present here. That is some news. We specifically told here some news. Date time dot now. We can see the date time of right now. and we can also see the name of the author. We cannot see the image because we haven't written the image widget inside this container. We just told that it's a 300 height container. So here we will give a child and an image that will come from network. Now, here also, we can see that image URL can be null because we have specifically told that image URL can be null or a string. So before the image widget, we will tell that if image URL is not null, then show the image. And here we will use an exclamation mark that specifically tells that in this case, image URL will never be null because we are first checking if image URL is null or not. So after that, we will tell that if image URL is null, then show something else. We will just give an empty container. Okay, so we now see the image, but it's not fitting according to the height of our container. Let's fit that. Okay, now things are looking a bit decent, but we can see an error here. The content we have given or specified in the dummy news info model, वो काफी बड़ा है. So it's taking the entire space of our device height and also taking a more space. So what we can do? Here we are using a column, and column has a specific height, and its maximum height is the height of the device. So we need all the things inside the column to scroll. Can we use a list view? Yes, we can, but then again, we need to specifically write all these custom or all these stuff. List view is not the ideal choice. Another widget, a very useful one, is called single child scroll view. If we do this, we can now scroll through our content easily. We can also change the physics to bouncing scroll physics. That gives us a little bouncing type feature at the end of our scrolls. Okay, so the basics of this page is also done, but we can see that our date time is not exactly the way we want it to be. How we want our date time to be? We want it to be let's say 12/03/2020 or 2022, like that. But here our date time just gives whatever value we are getting from this date time and transferring it to string. Let's customize it to the way we want it to be. Now, as I told, you can use string interpolation for this. We'll give it a day, then this one. The month, and then the year. Okay, so now it is coming here as the way we want. But isn't this one taking a lot of space? And the code is also not looking clean. So what we can do, we can make a custom function for it and pass the function. Let's see how we can do this. We will just copy the entire string from here, or let it stay here only. Just go before build method, make a static function that returns a string and name the function whatever way you want. I will get it like get date time in string. It will take a date time, and we will return it like the way we want. Now how we want is exactly like this. Now we just need to pass this function instead of this entire line. So our code will look cleaner. And we can separate the logic from the UI. Okay, this page is also almost done. Some more things I would like to test is if we have a bigger news title, what happens? Okay. Now we will again move to our main page and change this to home page, because we do not want to show this exact page. We want to select the news which we want to view and go to that page. So we'll go to home page, and here we can see that all these cards are actually a news card. We need to configure our news card to the way our news info model is configured, because we want, actually what we want is whenever we click on these news card, we want to go to that screen, the news view page screen. So we'll come here, we will delete these fields, and we will just give it a news info model field. We will come here, now since image URL can be null, we have to do the same thing as we did in the image news view page screen. Specifically tell that this cannot be null if we are already checking it, and if it is null, we will just show it a NP container with just the background color. Okay, we will also change the height a little bit, and the title also we have to change to news info model.title. Now call everything with the dummy news info model and remove the constant here. I will delete it and just copy and paste these. Okay, now this widget is not clickable for now because we haven't made anything in this widget so that we can click it. So we will go to the container and we need to say that कि इस container को तुम ऐसा बना दो कि इसको अगर click करें तो कुछ होगा, क्या होगा वो बाद में देखेंगे. We will go to refactor and we'll select a widget. We will use the gesture detector widget that detects any gesture on that particular widget, and we will give it a named parameter called onTap that does thing whenever we tap on that screen. So if we say let's print hi, So whenever we tap on that screen, it will print hi. Now, what we actually want to do is navigate from here to this page, the news view page. So we need to navigate it. How do we navigate in Dart? We will learn today. We use the navigator dot push and the route, that is a material page route. Inside the material page route, there is a builder that takes the context that is passed in the build function, and we will use an arrow function and tell it to go to the news view page with this news info model that we passed here. Now, every news card will have some different news and apparently news info model too. Since we are using a dummy news info model for this session, so we can see everything as same. Now, let's see what happens. Okay, so it's navigating. Now, this button should navigate back to the home page. Let's do that too. That is just a simple one-line code where we wrote a to-do. We'll just delete the to-do and we'll pop. So whenever we click here, it pops to the original screen from where we went to that screen. Okay, but the animation is not very desirable. It's very simple, right? We just click here and the image goes here. Wouldn't it be nice if we could animate the image to this place? Let's see how we can do that. We'll go to our news card and here we will search the image. We'll wrap this image with a widget called the hero widget that takes a tag, and this tag needs to be unique for everything. So this tag will be image URL, since it will always be unique, but since here we are using a dummy model, so all our image URL will not be unique. So we also need to give it with the date time to make it unique. Or let's just keep it with image URL tag. Now we will go to the news view page and we need to find our image widget. Do the same thing here also with the tag. Let's see what this does. Now, as I told that the tag always needs to be unique, but here we are using our dummy news info model a number of times in our home screen. So every time we tell that this news card, and this news card doesn't have a unique image, since we are only using the dummy news info model for everything. So that time we are Dart is telling that tag is not unique for all our widgets. So let's just delete all these and test it with one. Okay. So we can see an effect where the transition is a bit smoother, where our image jumps to the exact place where we want to be without any jump. Now, some detailing that is left. That is, I want some shadow under this container. If we go to the news card page once again and find this container here, we will give a decoration of and one very interesting thing, when you are using decoration, you cannot use color outside this decoration. That will give you an error. So if you are a beginner and you see an error like this, so whenever your decoration, please give the color inside the decoration. Now we'll give a shadow. It will have an offset of, in the y direction, I do not want it to have an offset. In the x direction, the offset will be 0, and in y direction, the offset will be 2 pixels with a blur radius of 4 and color of black with opacity 12%. Okay, so we can see a small shadow here. And our pages are also navigating properly. Okay, so we are almost done with the UI part. And for this session, we were scheduled to do up to this only. In the next session, we will connect our app with an API. We will be using the Dio package. It is a very useful package and very handy package for connecting our apps with backend services. And do we have any questions for today? Okay, cool. So that's it for this session. You guys will be notified about the next session that will be in the end of next week. And I will keep the sessions before 21st only, because from 21st colleges are starting for 3rd and 4th year students. So all the best to 3rd and 4th year students, and also to our juniors for 1st and 2nd year, whose colleges will be starting, I guess, from 30th. So that's it for this session. Thank you for attending, and we will see you in the next one.